It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris.
And my name is Mike.
And this week we're celebrating Dave Filoni's new Star Wars role. Yay.
Yay.
Good job, Dave. Good
Glitter.
job, Dave. Yes.
Balloons.
If I had those little popper things, I'd be popping them all over the place, but I don't have any of that. So we'll talk about what his new job is here in a little bit. Sony won't quit with bad Spider-Man ideas, Mike. We got two of them we're going to talk about even. Two of them. And one of them I think you forgot even existed, which is my favorite part of this. So we're going to talk about this horrible one that just won't die, or it's dead and they just won't admit it. One of the two. Crisis on Infinite Earths confirms it's a 3-parter. The upcoming DC animated property, which DC animated is consistently above mid, if you will. So I think I don't watch a lot of them, but they're always putting stuff out. So I think this is going to be very exciting for people and more.
Consistently above mid.
That's how I describe our show. If I could write a review for our show, we are consistently above mid.
That was my Thanksgiving turkey this week.
You did great, man.
I botched it, but it doesn't matter. Nobody cares about turkey anyway. It's all about all of the other things on the plate. And I don't know if you're listening from other parts of the globe, but I guess American Thanksgiving is just full of a lot of beige foods.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Chris, but when I looked down on my plate after going through the little buffet line in our kitchen, I was just like, this is just a very beige plate. Besides the cranberry sauce, like emanating the only color.
Well, we didn't have cranberry sauce, but yeah, it's a very much a starchy holiday, if you will. We kept it simple here at our house. It was just the two of us. We had again the turkey, the mashed potatoes, and the rolls, Mike. For two of us, that's more than we could eat for like 3 days. So absolutely, a nice thing. And then I've got that stupid song called "Taste the Biscuit." Have you seen that on video?
No.
It's just like ladies singing about how good biscuits are, and she says, "Taste the biscuit, taste the goodness of the biscuit." I'm like, well, that's exactly a white people Thanksgiving right there. But I didn't have any biscuits, but I can't stop thinking about that because of the holiday. But overall, I never had an experience cooking Thanksgiving food growing up. So now that I get the opportunity to do so, I revel in these moments, Mike. I know you do as well. We're sharing our brine pictures back and forth, our recipes right before the show. I mean, we're madmen out here.
It's crazy, but now that the holiday has passed, we are pretty much at the tail end of, I guess, Black Friday weekend, and I think my favorite trend has been seeing the exposed Black Friday prices out in the real world, which has been extremely satisfying because I think most people have kind of gotten over the hype of Black Friday. It's just not quite what it used to be. But it was a compilation video of people like in a Target or a Best Buy or like a Walmart, and then they lift up the sale price, and it's literally the exact same normal retail price. So I would like to think that, these giant corporations would be like, okay, next year we'll actually put things on sale, but more than likely it'll probably just be a line item in the memo of remove the old prices, please, before you put up the sale prices. We are tired of going viral for selling a TV for the same amount.
And I think one of the things is, there are actual sales out there in the world, right? I was able to buy a TV with Walmart's early Black Friday things about a video game, Mortal Kombat 1 for $40, which I think is normally $70. So as long as you know what the actual value is before you buy something quote unquote on sale, you're gonna do yourself a favor, right?
Yeah.
I'm sitting here right now. I hate this week. This time of year sucks because my email inbox blows up with ad emails, like things I don't want. So I start unsubscribing in December to most of them. But like since we've been sitting here, I've got an up to 60% off video games ad, like a notification on my phone. And I'm like, well, they know me, but I mean, like, is it really gonna be the good games you want to buy? Like, am I buying Super Mega Baseball 4 for Nintendo Switch.
Whoa, 4? That was
Yeah.
the best one in the series.
Oh, Miles, Spider-Man. We were just talking about Spider-Man Miles Morales, PlayStation 5, $20 at Target now.
That's not bad, but you're already a game behind if you're nabbing that one. But it is great.
Well, and that's the PS5 version for those who may not have been able to get the upgraded version. But anyway, I hate the ads and promos, and buy it now. Only 3 hours left. I'm like, I'm good, man. This year I feel pretty good about not getting a whole lot.
But on the positive side, everyone now, by my command, can finally enjoy and indulge in the winter holiday seasons. We are at the end of November, and I'll allow it. I know I have this omnipotent power, so you can finally put up all your decorations. You can drink the eggnog that you want. The wife and I will be hitting up Trader Joe's and looking for the fun holiday exclusive snacks that they put out during this time of year. That's what we're up to. That's on the agenda for us.
Yeah, it's again the holiday snacks. Mike sent me on a search for holiday cheerwine punch.
Did you find it?
No, they only had the regular.
Damn it.
But they had a lot of the regular, and for the first time I've ever seen in Kentucky, Verner's, it's like I think it's like a ginger ale. I've never seen it here, but they had a bunch of it for the first time in the holiday section.
Oh, wow.
Cranberry Canada Dry as well. So
yeah, if anyone's unfamiliar, Cheerwine is just kind of like the old-fashioned Dr. Pepper, essentially.
It's like a cherry
different
cola-ish.
manufacturer, distributor. Yeah, it was kind of like Dr. Pepper went on, to school and absolutely crushed the competition, and Cheerwine was just like, I'll keep just mixing this up in a bathtub.
He
and
may
keep
not be a
selling it.
doctor, but he's got an associate's degree in soda.
He's cheerful.
Yeah, that's right. He's got a good personality. But yeah, the punch, I didn't find it. We did look. I went to a Target. I actually went grocery shopping on a holiday weekend, which I absolutely hate because of the people are just awful. Yeah, I couldn't find it. But we did pick up. Was it the Elf, which is his 20th anniversary? The maple syrup fish, goldfish, but they're graham crackers, not actually goldfish. They're maple syrup graham crackers from Goldfish that are Elf branded. I haven't got to try them yet, but I'm excited to do that. I love holiday candy. We have a bowl in our living room for when guests come over, and I found a mint bag. It's a bag of just like mint. Like there's like the mint duo Kit Kats, candy cane Hershey Kisses, the candy cane, one of those like little Hershey bells that have like the chocolate thing on the bottom, and York peppermint patties. Like I love a good mint flavor in it. So I think that's cool. It's good.
Yeah, I just unlocked my. I had to pay $30 for 6 months to do this, so only recommend it if you got $30 to burn. But Ancestry DNA now does these genetic traits, like things that you might be more or less likely to do compared to your DNA. And I have an extra sensitivity all the way to the most right side of the scale towards sweets. So I think that's why I like candy so much, because my DNA. So I'm glad I finally have an answer for my addiction to candy, Chris.
Oh yeah. I could tell you, that's you in a heartbeat. So you just never know with all that fun stuff. I was gonna say I think we're live, but we're not live, Mike. I was gonna say this is the first time we've not been live forever because I tried to set this up early, and guess what? I done fucked up, and it's frustrating me. So we're not live, but this will be uploaded later. But I did want to say for people who are watching this on YouTube for the first time, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'm only saying this because when I said the word subscribe, our little button did a little rainbow action below. If you didn't notice that, so. Hopefully you can do it. It's a great, we are the best Christmas present to get people. I think here on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you can get a Superhero Slate special where we're absolutely free. You can give a subscription for anybody to our show for free this weekend. And next weekend, and the weekend after too.
Just go to superheroslate.com, copy and paste the URL, and just paste it in a Word doc, and maybe go to like 48 font or something.
Yeah.
You know what? If you're feeling fancy, like you can italicize it, maybe bold it up, and then just print it off, and there you go, free gift.
That's right. Yeah. Maybe you could hand draw a QR code to our Apple Podcast page. If you're feeling real frisky.
Didn't even think about that. Yeah.
But anyways, so we're doing that. We're not live, Mike. I'm sorry. I thought we were live this whole time, but here we are. But anyway, we've got some news. What I hate and love about a short week, Mike, is it's a short week, for responsibilities, and you get a lot more eating time. However, in terms of news, we are absolutely dry, like bone dry on the news this week. So we're gonna go through some stuff here as usual. We always make it work. But anything else for you? We wanted to jump into this. I mean, I hadn't had a chance to really do anything else this week other than see that I have an episode of Monarch: Legacy of Monsters to watch and haven't watched it yet.
Well, you know what, Chris? Every second we burn is 1 second that we're not drinking eggnog. So let's talk about the Sinister Six.
You're not selling eggnog to me. I don't care how hard you try. But yes, we're going to talk about the Sinister Six. This one Sony property that was rumored to be after the Amazing Spider-Man 2, which they heavily implied throughout that movie, and even like the end of the movie. I don't even know if it was post credits, right? Where there's a mysterious man in black walking through, and you see all the Dr. Octopus arms and the Vulture wings and all the stuff. So they were really hyping it up, and then they decided they were actually into making money and partnered with Marvel to make quality Spider-Man content, and that was great for everybody. However, the Sinister Six name and property is rumored to be back on at Sony with their current live action characters, and I've got at least 4 names that kind of are heavily rumored / believed to be part of this, and then some more we'll talk about. So first and foremost, Venom, one of the few Sony properties to get 3 movies in the Spider-Man universe of Marvel characters. Venom 3 is currently filming, so he's definitely in that list. Morbius, boy, God, he just won't quit with that. So Morbius would be there. They set up kind of a Spider-Man against Spider-Man kind of thing, and that was the 80-yard post-credit scene for Morbius with the Vulture. Kraven, the movie with Aaron Taylor Johnson, coming up next year at some point. And then the other name that came up was Ezekiel Sims, and you may not know what this is, but he was the evil Spider-Man suited person from the Madam Web trailer we talked about last week.
And then so we got 4 there. So every time Sinister Six is brought up on this show, I just instantly start putting the roster floating in my head. If I had an AR glass situation, I would just be floating up here in the ether. So 2 more, you got the pick of the litter, I guess, but it would help if they were already kind of established in some way in this Sony universe.
Absolutely. And based on that, I already mentioned the Vulture, right? Michael Keaton somehow made it into this universe at the end of Morbius. So we have him as part of this, not very much a long shot. However, Michael Keaton's probably expensive. And really, his last cameo movie didn't do so well with The Flash earlier this summer. Lastly, that would be 5. The 6th person is rumored to possibly be the Rhino, who we saw glimpses of in the Kraven trailer. However, I have a feeling the Rhino's not going to make it out of the Kraven movie, Mike. So I think this might be hopeful.
You mean you weren't thinking Paul Giamatti's Rhino?
No.
From The Amazing Spider-Man?
No.
I think I'm very budget conscious now thinking on this show, since we've gone through all of this Marvel drama of the box office being poor and them just having to rearrange everything. And I can't imagine any studio being more budget conscious than Sony when it comes to this stuff. So I would think when you start to fill out this cast, do it on the cheap, right? You already got Venom, right? You got Tom Hardy, right?
Tom Hardy, yep.
Yeah. So Kraven has got to be Jared Leto, right? Morbius. You can't change that. You already got Kraven set in stone. We don't really have no affinity of Ezekiel Sims, so you might as well just throw in. I mean, Rhino, I guess, could be a full CG character. Okay, this is a good question. What is cheaper, a full CG character of Rhino that you could just basically have any voice actor do, or do you put a real person in some sort of half suit? Well,
I would say I say scratch Rhino completely out from this, right? I don't think he'll live that. I think he's the villain of the Kraven movie. But Kraven's half brother is the Chameleon, right? He's the guy who can shapeshift and become whoever. So what if we just did the Chameleon instead of the Rhino?
That would be a very cheap, cheap way to do it.
Yeah, this is the hey mom, can we get Spider-Man toys? And these are the Spider-Man toys we have at home. Trying to make a Spider-Man movie, and honestly, what if the thing is, I'm having the struggle. What movie? What's the point of this movie, Mike? What is the why are this interesting gathering?
The point of this movie is to capitalize on Andrew Garfield's resurgence of Spider-Man. And to just
he
cash
was not
out at the box
not,
office.
He was not tied to this at all. Andrew Garfield's name was not brought up whenever they talked about Sinister
This
Six.
has to be in it. If Andrew Garfield is not incorporated into the Sinister Six movie in like some real way, like don't do it. Like even though every time we talk about this stupid Sony universe, I've gotten to the point where I don't care anymore. Do whatever you want. But like if you're gonna do it, like if you're gonna be stupid, right? Like if you're gonna crash your car, take the seatbelt off. Just like go all at it.
I don't think they'll be Spider-Man at all, because they have set up all these anti-heroes, if you will, Mike. Like, the Venom, he's not really the bad guy. Morbius wasn't really the bad guy. Kraven, probably not going to be the bad guy at the end of the day. Ezekiel Sims, probably the bad guy. But my fear is they're going to assemble the Sinister Six to fight somebody else who's not Spider-Man. Like, they are the good guys. They have to use their, I guess what's what I'm looking for here. They're not nice. They're not. They'll kill people, kind of thing, like the Punisher law kind of things to get things done. But who are they fighting? I really don't think it's going to be Spider-Man. Or if they wanted to do the ultimate version and do the Ultimate Six, where Spider-Man is the sixth member, and they have to you have to join us or we're going to kill your family, kind of thing.
You do bring up a good point. Even though I have totally forgotten the plot of the previous Venom movies, he did turn a positive, heroic turn at the end of his last movie before he briefly visited the MCU in after credit scenes and then came back.
He came to the MCU, had a drink, said, "This place is cool. I don't know where I am, but I gotta go. I got bills to pay back at the other."
Yeah. Well, also, I guess if we look at the list, I mean, Morbius is technically a good guy at the end of their movie. We don't know about Kraven yet. Vulture is not, I would say, not a good guy, but I would say he is kind of on the teeter-totter of like, you wouldn't have to try too hard in the story to get him to do something good. He
ended his thing at least protecting Spider-Man's identity from the other guy who's supposed to be the Scorpion or whatever of the MCU. So he's not like he's got his own interest out, but he's like not trying to actively kill somebody, I guess, or murder or take over the universe. I don't know. It sounds like an awful idea. It sounds like an awful idea all around. When Aviary gets that fucking Legend of Zelda money, he's just gonna go crazy with this property. So
unfortunately,
he and obviously, as we talked about, he is a toy maker. So obviously, this is his toy box right here. So I don't know if anyone has any ideas of what they want to see in the Sinister Six movie, because obviously I really don't think it's going to be Spider-Man. I think they're going to try as hard as they can to figure it out. And we don't have names, we have writers, we don't even have actors. So this hopefully is just they have to say it out loud, so investors are like, oh, they have ideas. So they're doing things. But I want to pump the brakes and go back to the Marvel things. I saw another report saying since the multiverse saga has started, the MCU has done $8.1 billion in box office revenue total, which is around $800,000 per movie so far. So a lot of those, each movie individually, box office woes, they fluctuate up and down. But overall, if you look at them average, they've actually come out pretty solid, pretty above the bar. I thought that was a very interesting big picture view rather than like macrocosm of each movie. So I thought that was very interesting. So if anything else comes out of that, we'll come back. But the other thing we're going to talk about, I sent this to you, Mike, and I think I forgot it existed, so I'm going to assume you forgot it existed, is that there's a show called Silk, Spider Society, in works at Amazon. And this is about the character Silk, who actually has direct ties to Ezekiel Sims. Because whenever she is a character who was bitten by the spider that bit Peter Parker after Peter Parker knocked it off of him. Before it died, it bit somebody else, and it was her, gave her spider abilities. They noticed that she had some sort of this multiversal spider thing, so they put her in this, her father or somebody put her in like a multiversal bunker where she couldn't be detected by these villains, I think Ezekiel Sims, until they let her out when she was like 18 or something. Very weird comic. Pretty cool character overall, but yeah. Anyway, they're making the show, but Amazon Studios, who's making this, is being sued by the WGA because they have not restarted the writers' room or have been paying the writers since the strike wrapped up a month and a half ago.
Ooh, pay them.
Yes. So there's two things to this. You're like, why? Well, I mean, obviously they're not working. They don't need paid. Sure, but the stipulations to the contract whenever the new agreement was signed with the WGA is that all productions can't have to whatever they were paused for have to be extended and paid for, even if they're not really started back up. So since they haven't started paying them yet. But the writers on this show, I don't fault them. They're taking they're trying to get work out there, are contractually obligated to this show and cannot find other employment due to that contractual obligation, even though the show's not started back up. So they are in a weird place where they can't even get work to get paid, and Amazon isn't paying them.
Yeah, it even used to be much worse. I know the writers just recently went through negotiations, but the time before that, when they did their contract, one of the bigger asks that they got was time to find their next project, because there was so much exclusivity around being a writer that even if your show only went like 10 weeks or something like that, you couldn't start looking for work for a couple more weeks or a couple more months. So they finally just got that fixed. Yeah. So it must suck to just be like, I can't go find work and I'm not getting paid and no one's worked all summer anyway. Really need this money just to pay my rent, or, even at the best case scenario, buy gifts for the holidays. So yeah, they should be sued.
Yeah. I feel bad that the last thing on their resume is Silk Spider Society, most of anything.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier this week in chat, and I was just like, as much as I don't want this to exist, I want them to get paid. So,
again, is Amazon not starting it back up gives me indications that they're going to cancel this, right? There are some other shows. This is not the only one. This is just the one in our sphere of superhero movies that is affected by this. So I think this show, which was announced in 2020 even, here we are, a little over 3 years later, has not really gotten anywhere, right? They're still in the writing phase. And there's some other shows. I think Amazon's going to can it and say, like, we don't have the money for this. This show is off the table. And hopefully, that is a best case scenario for everybody. Writers get paid. We don't get to watch this show, Mike. So hopefully, cross fingers. Another crazy news this week. Boy, I love crazy news. Suicide Squad 2016 version has popped up on my radar yet again, Mike, because David Ayer is out there. People are like, oh, David Ayer, James Gunn lied to you. You'll never see your Ayer cut. And David Ayer's like, look, dude's working on the DCU. He's got a job to do, focusing forward on his new movies, his new cast, everything. Him and Peter Safran, they're all working forward. They don't need to work backwards, kind of thing. But then, like 2 tweets later, he's like, the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad will change the course of history. And I use these words literally. Change the course of history is what he said. And I cannot think of a movie ever changing the course of history. So I'm very concerned about how the Suicide Squad will do this in 2016, Mike.
I mean, was there a plot line in the original Ayer cut about Kim Jong-un from like North Korea? Because that's the only thing I could think that might possibly change the course of history. I mean, I am curious though, like, how much is the release of the Ayer cut have anything to do with James Gunn, right? He's working on a new universe. This seems more just something like an executive at like Max would do, similar to the Snyder cut, right? Of just like, oh, we don't need Gunn in this at all. This is just about purely distribution of legacy content. We don't need Gunn involved in this.
Well, and I think the other part of this is James Gunn's blessing involvement or anything else for any property means jack shit, because he co-wrote Acme or Coyote versus Acme, and they were still going to can that movie. So like, James Gunn probably needs to bless anything DC related coming out, going forward. That's live action, possibly even animated. We got something else to talk about that, but like, can he pull the strings to do this, even though they were going to cancel his own movie, right? That was non-DC related a minute ago.
I have just personally, I have never seen a director's cut do so much categorically better than the theatrical cut to like really change my overall opinion on it, right? I mean, that Suicide Squad movie was so bad that I can only imagine it getting so much better. It's just like, yeah, there's probably footage that they cut, right? But the basics of the story, I believe, are just there. Like, my problem of that movie was not execution. My problem of that movie was there was something in every category that was so flawed. So,
If I remember correctly, the entire third act was like he lost the edit pretty early on, and the entire third act was redone. Which I would like to see how this movie ends under him, right? We one of I can never it's been so long since I watched this. I don't remember. It was El Diablo was the character's name or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like I think he had a bigger importance to this, but you can't fix the weird. Can't think of the actress's name who played the villain in this, and she had like the weird dancing thing every time she was moving around.
The Enchantress.
Yeah, Enchantress. I was like, yeah, there are things building up to this. I would like to see it, Mike, but this isn't something I need to lay down and stop everything I'm doing to promote. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, release it, put it only on video on demand, so people have to pay to see it, so you get some money back from it. I don't know what the cost is to get it done, but I mean, sure, I'd like to watch it, but like, I don't think watching this is. I'm gonna watch it, and be like, yeah, it was probably better, but I'm not going to ever revisit that another time after, if that makes sense. Thank God we stopped doing watches up to the MCU to catch up on all the films before we got to movies, because that was just getting unwieldy. And I made a playlist on my Plex this weekend of the DC EU movies, just to kind of see what that looked like, right? Because I forgot Birds of Prey was even a movie. Mike, did you remember that one? Because I was like, I probably should watch Aquaman before I buy my tickets, which are available, by the way. Pretty empty theaters. You don't have to rush out and buy them right away. Yeah, I'd like to see it, but I'm not like clamoring for an Ayer cut right now, Mike. Would you at least watch it if they release it, like, kind of casually?
Oh yeah, I would watch it, and I feel like it would be in a good place because it's been so long since I've seen the first one. It would be kind of like rewatching it and rediscovering it for a whole new time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm probably have a Mandela effect on it. Like, oh, didn't that happen in the first one? Probably like, no, no, it didn't. But yeah. So if you guys are into your Ayer cut, maybe just wait and it'll eventually come out, and we can all talk about it in a few years. But the next James Gunn / DC live action property coming out is, in fact, Superman Legacy. And there's some new casting this week. So we have Skyler Gisondo from the Righteous Gemstones to play Jimmy Olsen. So they're getting a proper Jimmy Olsen, Mike, instead of the military one who wasn't he got killed or something in Zack Snyder's, like the Jimmy Olsen. He was like the reporter with Lois Lane in the Midwest, I think, early on. And then Sara. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say this actor Skyler Gisondo. I love this guy. Pretty much every movie I've seen him in has been great.
He looks just like a Jimmy Olsen too.
Oh yeah, he gives off Jimmy Olsen vibes hardcore.
Yeah, so I think that's great. So we'll have a proper Jimmy Olsen. The other one is Sara Sampaio as Eve Teschmacher. Teschmacher. She's from, if you remember the Superman movies from the 70s, 80s, she was a Daily Planet employee. Also Jimmy Olsen. I've heard a lot of like the Daily Bugle. Is it the Daily Bugle? No, that's Spider-Man. What's it? Daily Planet is going to be a huge part of this movie. It sounds like they're casting like a Perry Mason and some other people, like really focusing on the newspaper aspect. And we haven't seen that in a hot minute, right? Like the only line I can ever think of was Lawrence Fishburne being my favorite line of his is in other news, water, wet. And I love that, but so I think that's very interesting. They're focusing on this.
Well, it's like it's an interesting balance, right? With Superman being this ungodly powerful hero compared to all the other heroes that an audience is kind of used to seeing on the screen, right? But then also we're asked to worry about his day-to-day job, right? Mm-hmm. We worry about a normal human's day-to-day job because, like, we don't want them to be homeless. We don't want them to go hungry. We don't want them to be vulnerable in our society. Yeah. And, like, Superman's, like, the least vulnerable kind of character that you can think of. And, that you can play that off, I would say, pretty well in a comic book because there's tons of issues, so you can tell smaller stories. You can play it off in, like, an episodic show. But movies are supposed to be, like, bigger events, so I'm curious how you get us invested in like a smaller like reporting story. I'm up for it for sure.
I think the other part of this is what we've seen so far with the Daily planet, boy, this is gonna be hard, is that all the other movies he was the only superhero, right, that they were reporting on. So in this with Superman, there's already Green Lanterns, there's already the Authority. So is this newspaper focusing on those other superhero going-ons around the city or world? And he's technically hidden up there, like he's a Superman. They don't know he's Superman. He is working at the thing, but he's in the middle of everything at the same time. So I think that's going to be a very interesting play if they are in fact covering the existing superheroes in this universe. The other big rumor out of this is Nicholas Hoult, X-Men Days of Future Past / what was the other one? First Class Beast himself. It's rumored to be Lex Luthor. Mike?
I like Nicholas Hoult. We're a Nicholas Hoult household, so seeing more of him is great.
Yeah, he. I actually just saw some photos. He's in the next Nosferatu movie, and he was also in Wasn't
he in that movie with Dracula already?
With Nicolas Cage, yeah.
Renfield.
Yeah, so he's actually very much in this Dracula kick right now. It looks like, but as Lex Luthor, I think he has the intensity to be that kind of character. And could pull it off.
He was also in the. Unfortunately it was canceled, but he was in the show The Great, which was kind of like a kind of satirical retelling of the 18th century of Russia. So he was just supposed to be this total asshole of a king. I'm trying to remember what king he was. I think it was like Robert or Peter. Hold on, I'm looking it up right now. But anyway, he was great at being kind of like a dick in that, basically, the antagonist. So I think it would work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember, what was it? I'm trying to think. It was a zombie one. Was it Warm Bodies? He was really good at Warm Bodies. Mm-hmm. That's an older one. He was big earlier. Mad Max. That's what I was thinking of. The one where he's the one who spray paints his mouth silver. So he's a good actor. Recently he was like I said in Renfield and The Menu. He's doing a lot of good stuff going on. Did you find it The Great Peter the Third? Is that what you?
I think it was just Peter. I think in the show he's known as like Peter the Great. So
okay, yeah. I just looked down here. So pretty cool on that. And lastly, someone else pointed out online, and this has been making the rounds, is that all casting characters before this Jimmy Olsen, or maybe Jimmy Olsen, are like the superheroes are legacy characters, meaning like they were not the first of their name. Like we talked about last week, the casting of the engineer, and technically that actress or the character is not the first engineer in the DC universe. They have Guy Gardner as a Green Lantern, which he was not the first Green Lantern, right? That's Hal Jordan from that era. So
maybe they're going to approach the story from this angle of, Superman's always been this beacon of hope. So maybe Superman is going to come to maturity in this world of all of these heroes, and maybe they just aren't very good at being heroes, right? They're just kind of all looking out for themselves. There's really no greater good. There's no just organization, right? There's no hierarchy when it comes to all this superheroing. So maybe Superman rises up, and he does what he's good at doing, which is being the Boy Scout, and he kind of just rallies everybody to be better. So I would like that.
Yeah, I think so. So I think that's very interesting in that regards as well. So maybe we'll see, like, have the superheroes been around long enough, kind of like Watchmen, right? Where Watchmen was like, oh, there's I forget the girl's name, but she was like the Silk Spectre 2, right? Like there's like maybe heroes from the 40s. 50s, 60s, and then finally Superman's, in a modern era. They kind of did that with the Kingdom Come comic book series from the 90s. Where like, all the classic heroes are now older, and like the younger ones are just kind of out of control and wild. So I'm excited to learn more about this movie, kind of going forward, and what they do with it. It's got a lot of weight on its shoulders, Mike. A lot of weight on its shoulders. Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths. This was a for those who may not know, this was a comic, Crisis on Infinite Earths, with one of the huge big crossover comic books, I believe, for DC in the 80s, 90s. Every few years they do a Crisis series where all the multiverses are wiped clean and there's only one left, or they're recreated, so on and so forth. It's a big multiverse thing. Was it Arrow tried to do this a couple years ago as well, right? With that, but they are finally animating the original comic book, if you will, in true DC fashion, creating an anime series. And we have our first trailer for Crisis on Infinite Earths, confirming A, it's a trilogy of animated movies, so there'll be 3, and B, that they are in fact focusing on a multitude of different I guess variants of superheroes, if you will, including like you can see multiple Superman or a couple Batman and so on and so forth. And it feels very dour, like very like, oh my god, nothing's gonna really good's gonna come out of this kind of trailer here. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch it yet.
I mean, it's been a minute since I've checked in on the DC animated universe, and the first thing to me is it seems like the art style has kind of changed a little bit. You know, they're still kind of doing that kind of classic American action storytelling with, you know, the character designs, but all of the line qualities are a lot thicker. It just everything feels a little bit more graphic in its representation, which looks kind of cool. Also, but some of the motion feels a little bit odd. There's like a scene where like the Flash is running in the trailer that like looks like there's just like kind of this bizarre like kind of like emotion tweening on it. But you know, I'm seeing it out of context. But yeah, well, I guess we'll see where it goes.
Yeah,
a very iconic storyline.
Yeah, they usually put about 3 or 4 of these a year. Still, surprisingly, this year we had Legion of Superheroes, Batman: The Doom That Came to Gotham, and Justice League War World came out. And then this was one of the Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths was announced at San Diego Comic-Con earlier this year, coming 2024. Then remember, Watchmen is going to be coming after that. So yeah, you can see kind of through that. These are part of the. You mentioned the animation style has been updated, right, a little bit. I think to crank out these movies 3 a year. It seems like they've made. I wouldn't say some. They haven't taken the quality back, but they've made some adjustments, I guess, to make the production quicker, right? Across that. Now, what's interesting about this is if you look at the credits, they are not including voice actors from the main animated movies, like the main ones we talked about. Like Warworld has like Jensen Ackles as Batman, right? And like, you know, big actors, because they are going to follow us under the Tomorrowverse brand. Are you familiar with the Tomorrowverse label at Batman or DC?
No, I'm not.
So essentially, this is like they can do whatever they want without using the same actors over and over again. Like Tomorrowverse, gotcha. This is like a future that could come to be, if you will. And I believe this has only been in the past few years. If you go look. There was the larger, as we mentioned, the DC animated universe, like a bigger collection, like where everything kind of ran together. And then once that ended, I believe with I think it was Apocalypse War, they started focusing on the Tomorrowverse stuff to reduce the cost, because you don't have to get the big name actors to do the voice acting. And I couldn't imagine this trilogy using all the big name actors, how unwieldy that cost would get just to make an animated movie. And obviously, you know, we're not the audience for them, so I don't know who's buying them. Are they going straight to Max? Are there people buying them on demand? I don't know. But this looks pretty cool. I followed the loose plots of Crisis on Infinite Earths, but I've never actually sat down and read the comic book, so I think I'd rather watch it across a 3-parter. So you guys can check out the trailer in the show notes if you want to. As we mentioned at the top of the show, Dave Filoni got a new job at Lucasfilm, Mike, and you sent me the message, damn, we didn't get the job. And I find that very funny, because he has now been named Chief Creative Officer at Lucasfilm.
It's always a bummer to find out this way that you didn't get the job when you see it posted all over Variety that somebody else got.
Kathleen, we're disappointed. You could have got 2 for the price of 1. And you could have just called us and told us, hey, we're going in a different direction. You know, Dave brings his Avatar, The Last Airbender history with him, and you guys just don't have that. I understand. Like, really, it's not personal. But overall, I think Dave being named Chief Creative Officer at Lucasfilm, I think this is a great announcement, Mike. I've not seen anyone actively be upset at this announcement at all this week. So this is great. Some of the things he did mention was that he originally saw Star Wars projects near their completion, like in the editing phase, right? Like at the end, and trying to help kind of make the story work or fit into the larger picture. But now he'll help oversee the stories probably even before their creation, like right when they're whiteboarding them, right when they're greenlit. So that'll be awesome.
This was all announced in an interview that he gave as well, and he was quoted saying like, "Oh, now I get to be there at the beginning when these projects start," which is great because it seems like Filoni has an idea of what this universe should be and where it should go. So now he's not going to be really massaging things to fit what he thinks should happen. He gets to start from the very beginning and set the tone. One thing that I find really interesting is that he's chief creative officer for Lucasfilm. Right now, it's not like a huge, lineup, right? You basically have Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Willow, and is there anything else outside of that for Lucasfilm? I don't know. So I do wonder, does he have any like Indiana Jones ideas? Anything cooking that he'd want to do? I'd be kind of curious.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably, whether he's doing it or not, maybe making ideas, but I'd be like, hey, we want to. If they are going to make any more Indiana Jones, and the only thing I can think of is that upcoming Bethesda game, because, hey, Dave, can you help us tie this together? Because we've been making these movies for 40 years, kind of thing. I was looking up here. I went and pull up American Graffiti is the other franchise, Mike, and only had 2 movies.
Oh, that'd be hilarious to reboot that. But there is part of me that's a little nervous, right? Only because we just recently talked about Ahsoka on the show. I wasn't a huge fan of it, and that had Filoni's DNA all over. His fingerprints are on that every inch of film. If there was actual film shot on it, his fingerprints on every keystroke of the editing board as well. So it's just, I don't know. I'm hoping that he can just bring everything together, and it's just great. Maybe this, I mean, really, a chief creative officer, their goal is not to write everything and direct everything. Their job is to shepherd the projects. So I think he would be very, very good at that because he's great at having a vision, but maybe it's time to let some other voices come in and write it.
He has written his projects, and his projects alone all tie together as one creative project. If you look at them, right, whether you liked it or not, he stayed true to his Clone Wars. He stayed true to his Rebels, through Ahsoka as well. Like everything it's one big story string, if you will, creatively. And what's cool about I think Chief Creative Officer in this regard is that Dave Filoni, if you go and listen to his older interviews, even he has such a reverence for the Star Wars universes, right? Like he didn't offend anybody by what he did. You may be confused, but it's not like he went out of bounds. He was always within the bounds of Star Wars, of what we knew and what we've come to know about it. So I think him being able to say, hey, look, in Star Wars, George did this in episode 3 or something like that. So we can use that. Or he mentioned, I think in the interview, he saw like in the episode 2, the Clone War or the Attack of the Clones, there were some other universes on the star mats whenever Obi-Wan Kenobi couldn't find Kamino. And he was like, what are those galaxies? We can bookmark those for later. So I just think his reverence for all of Star Wars, what George Lucas did, what Disney, like everything, I think he's able to say, hey, look, this all works in here, and we won't ever need we'll probably get a Star Wars timeline book, but like there's not going to be those big confusing moments like Marvel's had to do, right? Because they've had different people. They didn't really have a CCO over Marvel stuff. So I'm excited about it. I think he's got some ideas. I know there's 3 movies and 2 TV shows we haven't seen yet out of Lucasfilm, right? The 3 movies they announced earlier this year, and then Skeleton Crew and The Acolyte, right? So we've got those, but I'm excited for that. He also said that they're starting to explore Ahsoka's season 2, which makes sense. My guess is they'll probably do again a Mando 4, Ahsoka 2, Skeleton Crew, and then maybe jump into those movies sooner than later. I would love a good Star Wars movie in theater again. I don't know about you.
We would. I do have to say, I do appreciate just the overall success story for Dave as a person, though, right? Just starting out, cutting his teeth in the animation industry, then slowly working your way up to bigger and bigger projects. And now all of a sudden he is just honestly, he is not far down the ladder from like the CEO of Disney now. Like he is high up enough now where he could get a meeting if he wanted it. And I just think that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, he being able to wear his little cowboy hat or whatever all the time, sitting in with George Lucas when they were working on the Clone Wars before Disney bought them, and now he's up there. I don't think he'll ever take this might be his peak Disney role, right, or Lucasfilm role, because he doesn't seem like a businessman. He wants to create. He wants to be the creative person. So hopefully with that. But I would love to see him. Hopefully, maybe I know people had some issues with Mando season 3. Maybe shepherd Mando season 4 into some better areas, right, going forward, because he was a big part of the first 2 seasons and not so much the third one, if you will.
I'm looking through his IMDb right now, and the oldest thing I can find is he got started being a storyboard artist for King of the Hill, which is just nuts. Just go back in time in 1999, look at a row of people drawing for King of the Hill and go like, that guy, you'll be in charge of Star Wars someday. It's just really fun for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at stuff I remember seeing Mission Hill, but if you look at the artwork, Mike, that's not a show that's going to take off very well if you mouse over that. The Oblongs, Kim Possible. I mean, dude was just making just doing storyboards for forever, until he got a director job at Avatar. So that's great. That's a bottom up kind of thing. I also looked. He's got special things for Star Wars Visions. Yeah, okay, that's cool. And then yes, but anyway, congratulations, Dave, on your Star Wars stuff. If you need some ideas, call us. We got ideas for you. We'll give you some feedback. Let's jump into some Fantastic Four rumors, Mike. The first big rumor is actress Anya Taylor-Joy is rumored to be cast as the Silver Surfer, or at least a Herald of Galactus in the movie.
Yeah, we were talking about that last week, that they might be kind of changing the gender for a character, which I would say historically is not very gendered. It's just a smooth, reflective humanoid.
Yeah, could be anybody on the other end, right?
I'm sure somebody's already firing up the AI art machines of
Boss Logic's
on
already
Taylor-Joy.
Boss Logic's already on this. But one of the other things was the person who reported this, they are a trusted scooper who's got a pretty good track record, but they think the wires may be crossed. They say it could be a Herald of Galactus, maybe Frankie Ray, or a character known as Nova, Nova 2. It's not really a Nova like we know them, but like another character they just called Nova back in the 70s. Who was another Herald of Galactus, who is a female embodiment of that. So, do you need Doctor Doom, Galactus, Silver Surfer, and the Fantastic Four in one movie? Could you use another Herald of Galactus, then introduce Silver Surfer later, kind of deal? I think, to me, either one is fine. I'm not going to care either way who they choose, as long as they don't kill her off after the first movie, if you will. The Silver Surfer is an ongoing character who has his own journeys when he's not with Galactus and does his own good stuff, has some cool powers. But
if I had to bring it back to the conversation earlier, this is not a budget hire. Yeah. Anna Taylor-Joy, she is too expensive, Marvel. Right. You gotta bring those returns on the box office. Find somebody cheaper. You're just gonna chrome them out anyway.
Right. Yeah. So it makes me think maybe they take on a human form, kind of thing. I've also linked a list to the Heralds of Galactus in the show notes if anyone wants to take a look at that. Yeah, she's also not averse to superhero movies, as she was Magic in was it oh my gosh, was it? It's not Young,
New Mutants.
New Mutants. I want to say Young Mutants, but it's New Mutants, which people have forgotten about, including myself. Even the name of it before now. So, yeah, I mean that's great casting either way. I think she'd be a great actress in this. The other bit of news is Cillian Murphy is a front runner for Doctor Doom.
I mean, that guy's menacing as all hell, right? I think that works.
Also, not a budget hire. Recently seen in Oppenheimer, one of the biggest movies of the year, next to Barbie. And he's also been the Scarecrow in the Nolan Batman films. So he's not, again, versed to playing that. He has just got one of those, 1,000-yard stares that you're just I'm uneasy with you, with that look on your face.
The jawline helps too. I feel like the more intense the jawline, the more I can be terrified of you, so that's helpful.
What's that show he's in? Is it Peaky Blinders? I keep seeing a lot of clips of him.
Yeah,
Now that he's come up in this, they're like showing like clips of him like being like a, kind of a hard ass badass in that show, right? In the like the dramatic scenes, talking with other people. I think he'd be a great actor. I think he'd be a good get as well. I would take as much as I like Mads Mikkelsen, I would take a new actor over someone who's already been in the MCU to be Doctor Doom.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much pressure on the casting and character of Doctor Doom, right? It seems like a lot of the MCU moving forward is going to be centered around this character, so they got to nail it. And like, not just the acting quality, like that seems, honestly, I feel horrible for casting directors, because that is like now the easiest thing to do, of cast somebody for their acting ability. The hardest thing to do is look beyond that and be like, are you going to be in a scandal and ruin the next 10 years of this movie studio, right? I mean, you were mentioning, I don't remember if we brought it up on the show or not last week, or maybe it happened in the middle of the week, that the rumor that Kang and Jonathan Majors wasn't being recast was because there was a stipulation in the contract that no one else could be Kang. That stipulation is going to be, Marvel's never going to make a deal again where they can't recast. So maybe that will kind of future-proof it a little bit. But yeah, it's really hard to look into an actor's eyes and go, are you going to be a headache in the future?
So I was not going to bring that up simply because that came from another show I listened to, and they got their scoop from someone who was trusted. But their segment of the show, Mike, is called Hot Scoop or Shot of Poop, and you have to credit that if you say that. So yes, we will. Let's go ahead and break down into this. I'm going to add it into. I'm going to add a new bullet point here in the middle of our show. Avengers, Kang, Dynasty, and we'll go into this. So yes, so on the Hot Scoop or Shot of Poop segment, Mike, from the show. Jonathan Majors, someone who was in the room with them, has seen the contract, physically says, we've talked about variants. Loki, had multi-variants, right, in his show of different actors and different people, even an alligator. But Jonathan Majors' contract specifically said that no one else can play Kang. If it's Kang, it has to be him, and that's why they haven't really recast anybody yet until everything is kind of smoothed out. Or even if it doesn't get smoothed out, this is like the big sticking factor of why they may have to shift to a Doctor Doom or another character down the road. So what do you do in this situation? I mean, I think Disney has enough money and enough, I guess, clout to say, look, you broke your contract due to like whatever breach we want to find, right? That has brought you to the court. That means we can't use you because you are a liability. So they may be able to break this little line in their contract. But like you mentioned, boy, what a situation to be in legally at this point.
Yeah, it does make you wonder, like, what's the perpetuity on that, right? We've been speculating for a while at the end of these final Avengers movies that there could be one big universal reboot and they go back from square one. Could you theoretically reintroduce a Kang there? Yeah. I mean, the big unfortunate side of all this, Kang is such a cool character just within, the universe of Marvel, right? Very menacing, very cool. And it's a shame that, it sounds like they might not get a chance to recast and continue in some way.
I think they could recast. I think all contracts that have either it's a time or a number of films, right? Like he has to be in a number of projects until to fulfill the contract, and if it's fulfilled, then that. But until his contract is fulfilled, no one else can be Kang. Which, I guess that makes sense. Boy, what if you were the actor getting that contract? Boy, how excited would you be? To do that. Now again, this is just, we are on a wild ride. I thought this trial, is this trial still this week? Is that this week for Jonathan Majors?
I think it's supposed to be before the end of the year.
I thought it was November. Let me pull it up here. November 29th, Mike. We are on the cusp of this trial in 3 days.
Ooh. So maybe we'll have some news next week.
Yes, maybe next week. My guess is that's the last thing you want to do. He's found guilty, and by Friday we have fired him and found some other. Yeah. But we'll see what it is. But like, this is just what a world to be in for that. So yes. So to keep moving on, we've got some more news. Avengers: Secret Wars. We talked about how they have let Daniel Destin Cretton go on to work on his Shang-Chi 2 and Wonder Man project because they want to hire one person to do both movies, right? Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. But currently the frontrunners for this are either Sam Raimi doing both movies, which I think we've both expressed mild pleasure in him doing that. I think if he's got a vision and he knows how to see it through, or the duo Justin Benson, Aaron Moorhead, who were known for working on Moon Knight and are recently the two guys they hired to fix Daredevil, Born Again, are the top runners to direct these interconnected Avengers films.
I mean, this is honestly the biggest downfall, right? When you do the big spectacle of a media day where you put on a big screen all of the logos of all the movies that you want to make, right? Yeah, I'm sure it's great for the stock price, right? I'm sure it's great for the shareholders and the board to see this whole big plan that you've laid out, right? But now you're beholden to it. How much less drama would be in the news right now if they never introduced all of these phases of these movies coming up, right? And it's a real double-edged sword because it's fun and it's exciting to see everything that they're going to do. I love it doing
bump in the SEO ratings for a long time. But.
Yeah, I love doing the podcast, after all of those announcements because you could just dive deep into all of it, but they're shooting themselves in the foot every single time. It feels like they're always pivoting and having to change things. So it just seems like maybe pull it back a little bit and only do 1 or 2 years at a time of an announcement,
Yeah. And we've talked about this. A lot of these announcements came with Bob Chapek, who was like, yes, announce everything, do all the things. Like more things equal more money, right? Everything you touch is $1 billion property because the last I guess three out of the 4 movies you just did were $1 billion franchises. Keep going. Like everything you do is going to be $1 billion. So yeah, they were like, announce everything because everything you announce something that's $1 billion on the screen. And obviously that is not true. It's not true at all. You get a pandemic, you get, too much projects at once. You get a lot of stuff bloated up, builds up, falls down. You get stuff ebbing and flowing all over the place. So yeah, absolutely. I think, obviously to me, and we've said this before in the show, Mike, waiting 6 years, 7 years, possibly 8 years between Avengers movies, big downfall. Huge mistake. You gotta, even the Avengers movies, they don't have to be world ending. Maybe they just have to be bigger, right? Like I think Age of Ultron, despite its flaws, had a really good example of like the universe isn't ending, the world is in danger, but it's not like, hey, we're in a city again. We're not in New York every time this is happening. So there's opportunities, but they just didn't do it. And they really should have built an Avengers movie to bring these characters together sooner and go with it. But we're just gonna see a lot more changes. Now we have some blank spaces in there. We'll talk about those here in a minute, but also about Secret Wars. They also this reputable scooper said Fantastic Four, Shang-Chi 2, Deadpool 3, and Spider-Man 4 are the big 4 movies laying the groundwork for Secret Wars. Kind of like how, what was it? Not Black Panther, but like was Captain Marvel kind of set. No, what movie set up the in Infinity War?
I thought it was. Wasn't there an Ant-Man movie just before?
Well,
Infinity War?
it was right after, but like the movies that have like, I guess the Infinity Stone movies, if you will, the ones that focus in on Infinity Stones were the ones that lead up. So this is kind of like these 4. Fantastic Four, Shang-Chi 2 has been rumored to be titled The Wreckage of Time. Deadpool 3 is dealing with the multiverse, right? TVA rumored. Spider-Man 4, Spider-Man is supposed to be the chosen one for the TVA from the MCU to fight Kang or whoever it may be at the end of the day, kind of thing. So I think I think those are 4 good movies to maybe rest your laurels on, if you will. I'm like, yeah, put your energy into these 4 movies. Put your money in and make them good, and this will pay off.
I would say you have the biggest maybe potential in improvement with Shang-Chi 2, where you set your base. It wasn't the hugest MCU debut of all time, but I would say it was solid. And MCU and Simu Liu's like acting, just prowess and popularity has only risen, especially after being in the Barbie movie.
And the fact that it had really good fight scenes, right? Like it after being burned by Iron Fist for 2 seasons, we actually got some good martial arts in the MCU.
It's like I feel like the biggest X factor is there. I mean, and they tease the kind of quantum / cosmic adjacent, a part of his 10 rings. So I feel like there's a lot to go there, and that's what I'm most looking forward to. It's just like it's fresh, it's exciting. I wasn't necessarily head over heels for the movie, but I did think it was good. So I just that's the one I'm probably most excited about. I mean, Spider-Man 4, we're already so many appearances of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I'm not saying it won't be good, but I feel like you got to think of a way to not reinvent, but something has to change no matter what so many installations in, right?
Well, and I think Spider-Man 4 has the most change out of this, right? Simply because where we left him off, he's essentially everyone, no one knows who he is, and he's alone in New York without Tony Stark's money for the first time in the entire franchise. So I think that one's very interesting. Deadpool 3 is the first Deadpool installment in Marvel, which is going to be I'm looking forward to seeing how he skewers this all to hell in this movie, and bringing back Wolverine. Fantastic Four, I think Shang-Chi 2, I trust Daniel. That's incredible. I think that's going to be great. Fantastic Four has the biggest question marks for me because we've never had a good Fantastic Four movie. The other ones, we've had three good movies in those franchises that are good. Fantastic Four is my biggest X factor, if you will, because I'm like, you've got to be good at this, and it's got to have great actors and great story and great chemistry. So maybe we'll see how that kicks off. But to me, it was funny that it's a first movie, second movie, third movie, and fourth movie in these franchises that are the ones kicking this off too, which I thought was interesting. Like intro, sequel kind of deal. But that means nothing. I'm just intrigued by patterns at the end of the day. Lastly, a little bit more Marvel Studios out of the same article came out. Thor 5, Eternals 2, Doctor Strange 3, Black Panther 3 are in some stages of development at Marvel as well. I don't think anyone is surprised by this because we've reported on all these at some point in our series. In all the episodes, all 451 episodes of the show we've done, we've talked about these at some point being in works.
Probably the biggest. What's the bigger surprise to me, Chris? Well, asking you, Thor 5 or Eternals 2? I feel like those are the biggest surprises if I had to rank them.
Thor 5. I think, I tell you what, I'm not surprised by either of them, if I'm going to be completely honest. Because Eternals 2, I think, set up a lot of, like, 3 different things to happen, right? It had the Blade, Black Knight. It had them going off with the Celestial Asherim, and then it had the other Celestials picked up Harry Styles along the way, right? I think it set some fun things. Again, pandemic movie, people just didn't care for it. It's got the longest gestating. Thor 5, Chris Hemsworth is just such a, even in Love and Thunder, which isn't like a great movie, he's still such a good actor in it. Like you'd love to go see him play the role. So I think Thor 5 is proven track record of Thor, then the Dark World, and back to Ragnarok, and then down to Love and Thunder. It has the most ebb and flow. So I think it's the most surprising simply because we've never had a 5th movie out of any superhero yet. So I'm just that's a long way to say I don't have an answer because to me they're neither surprising, I guess. How about you? Which one would you pick then? Eternals?
I mean,
like an Eternals guy.
It just I don't know. To me, it seems like Thor has just kind of run out of gas.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do another Thor movie, it seems like the best thing to do is sunset the character, right? It just give them a nice wrap up. Like all of the other original Avengers have had like at least something to kind of like bring their character full circle. Even Hawkeye, who's still technically out there, at least we've kind of get to see him in retirement in some way, kind of like hang up the bow a little bit. But Thor, not so much. So I think you sunset Thor and then also introduce another big character, like use that moment to bring somebody else in. Not necessarily somebody to take over the mantle of Thor itself, but just another opportunity, kind of like how Ragnarok, just focused on Hulk,
I think Thor Ragnarok had a good end, like a downer, but like a good end, right? Like bringing Loki and Thor together, even though they lost Ragnarok and they were refugees, and then obviously Infinity War kicked off really, really dour for Thor and Loki.
I mean, after seeing such an amazing finale to Loki season 2, I'm trying to decide, do I want Thor to meet that version of Loki in some aspect or not, right?
I think Thor... Here's what I want to happen. Thor doesn't need a separate movie before Secret Wars, but somewhere in Secret Wars, Loki and Thor should meet, all right? And Thor should see that his brother ended up being a hero, right? Being a good person. And Loki can, prove to Thor that, he doesn't need to be the arrogant guy that he was, what we saw in the first Thor. And Thor 5 can technically just be the rebooted Thor in the new MCU post Secret Wars. Like, make that Thor 5.
Yeah, I'd be okay with all that. But I mean, at least the X factor of Eternals is it's just got started, so you can try to turn the ship, adjust some things, tighten some bolts, So there's still potential there.
The Eternals kind of reminds me a little bit of the Incredible Hulk, right? Like, no, people watch it. The actors, they all got into a spat. They didn't know what to do with the Hulk until they recast Mark Ruffalo for the Avengers. They've not really had a Hulk project since then, right? Like solo. So like Eternals, I feel like it's like, yeah, we can tweak actors if we need to. We can pull back, push in whatever we need to do. But I think Eternals has such a cosmic presence that they could get off Earth and have better stories than what they were showing on Earth for thousands of years. What I would also like to see maybe in the new MCU, since, Asgardians have the idea of like life, death, rebirth, Valhalla, right? Like maybe post MCU, the reboot, like Chris Hemsworth is there, but he's like in Valhalla, right? Like, hey, the idea of being reborn as a different actor, perfectly fine. We have Thor's and all these other Odin's, Loki's, whatever, but like you still get to see that Chris Hemsworth in Valhalla,
man,
kind of thing.
You do. So now my brain is starting to turn, and I'm just starting to think about the end of the MCU, if you will, before it's rebooted in some aspect. And I know we keep talking about it like it's fact, and it hasn't technically been announced, but it just seems like that's the way you go. It almost seems obvious, and it happens in comics all the time, so why not mirror what they've done anyway? But yeah, now I am thinking, like, what is that moment on screen, right? Rightfully you should just have a nice cathartic ending at the end of your movie where the characters have won, they ride off into the sunset or whatever, right? But then there's got to be one final post-credit scene for the MCU, right? The things that have like built up the MCU over time more than anything, which is the post-credit scenes, the things that people always talk about and wait for, right? This post-credit scene, I would imagine, would be way longer than any of the other ones, right? This could possibly be like 10 minutes long, like in like a couple scenes, right? And it's like a moment like you're describing, like some sort of like all-powerful, ethereal Marvel character like doing something performative on screen that, like, I don't know, resets the universe in some way. Like maybe it's Lady Death, maybe it's the Watcher with some sort of soliloquy, maybe it is like a classic character like Thor, in the afterlife, right, doing something, but something symbolic on screen that's telling the audience like this is over and I'm I'm resetting it all. Come back in like 2 or 3 years and watch the X-Men #1.
Yeah, I think it's maybe more of a, to me, if they do Secret Wars, it's going to be all these universes come together, and then the reboot is, again, things that work, keep those things that didn't work, get rid of those, and you see maybe it is a montage of the things that worked, the characters you want to keep in their lives at some point, right? Kind of, and that's your new kickoff. Like if you look at the Secret Wars comic book, Reed Richards ends up with the ability to create new universes, and he brought everything kind of back. So like, is it that flash of white and everything's kind of normal and maybe a couple people remember, right? Like, do you want to have that memory of the Marvel that was, or do you not want to have that, is going to be my question. It's like, I think it'd be fun to have that, some characters have a memory, but if you don't want to, don't. It could be like maybe the new universe is like it's a starting point. Maybe it's a kind of like a Kubrick style, like here's the universe flashing forward to now, this new universe, right, is born from day zero and going forward, and then that's where you get to see maybe some of those X-Men moments, like Magneto in the concentration camps, like like the iconic scenes that we've seen over and over again, and you don't have to play those in the movies. You just get to see like, oh, this is alluding to X-Men. Oh, here's the Fantastic Four. Here's like the characters we want to set up in their some important moments, so we don't have to show those origin stories again. Like a young kid, Peter Parker bitten by a spider. A de-aged Tom Holland bitten by a spider. You don't have to show it, but like here are the moments that are defining this new universe very quickly.
Yeah, it is an interesting problem to solve, though, that you bring up is you get to the final Avengers movie, you just cast a couple of actors to be characters that we haven't seen yet. Like our Doctor Dooms, our Fantastic Fours, and the audience loves them. The Fantastic Four, finally a Marvel movie to break back into like the $1.5 billion range or something, and it's just like, well, we can't wipe them from the universe. They're doing so well, but we got to reboot stuff. So yeah, maybe there is some sort of function of like, we'll keep some of them around, but more than everything is going to change. That's
how the comic book worked, because in the main 616 Marvel comic books, Miles Morales as Spider-Man did not exist. He was an Ultimate Spider-Man only, right? And that's 1610. But in the comic book, because he gave Molecule Man a cheeseburger, he was like, you know what, you get to stay, kind of thing. Like he just happened to have a cheeseburger thing, and he's like, all right. So he got pulled over. The maker, the evil Reed Richards, got pulled over as well, in that regard. So there are ways to pull them together, I think. And the Molecule Man, one of the things I was thinking of, and we haven't even got to our last bit here, is what if that's not Molecule Man is the person who like can control molecules, and he created this universe, right? Like Doctor Doom used his power to hold this together. What if that's Loki in this? Like the Molecule Man is Loki. Like he's the one who gets to pull this new universe together. He's like, all right, I'm going to pull all the best things out of this, because he's the one creating that timeline going forward.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of checking a lot of the boxes. You have a legacy character that we've seen since the beginning of the MCU. We've been very endeared to him in the Loki show. He is kind of in a position of power where he could, reset everything. So, like, yeah, maybe there is, like, I can't save everybody, but, I can save a few. So... and coincidentally, he's saving all the people that Hollywood likes the most right now.
He could even phrase it as, I've seen the good and bad of everybody in all the universes, and I'm going to pull the best of the best, kind of thing. So, it sounds so fun. I like this idea. That's a good.
It's fun talking about it. I hope it's as exciting watching it as it is talking.
Absolutely,
about.
And I hope we're wrong and we are surprised, and they do it better than we could ever imagine on this show. Lastly, Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, and She-Hulk are shows in line at Marvel to get second seasons with the new series structure in place, was this rumor. Now, again, with the new series structure at Marvel, showrunners will write pilots and show Bibles, and then they will not film the entire series and then fix it in post. They will treat it like a true TV series rather than a movie, and then
so
fuck
funny.
It all up later.
What a novel idea! Make TV how TV has been made. Well, like I've said in the past, like I don't bemoan them for attempting to try what they were trying, because if you look at it on paper, it kind of made sense. Like we've had so much success making all of these feature-length movies this way, and our streaming shows they're longer than our movies, but they're not as long as like a normal running like 13 episode like Netflix Daredevil, right? So it's just like, yeah, we might be straining the movie making machine a little bit to make these series, but like what's a better idea? Just totally reinventing the way we've done all of our success. So I'm not surprised how they got there, but I'm not surprised how it turned out either.
Yeah, it's one of those things is like, hey, you've been doing this one way. We want you to make TV shows. And like, well, we don't know how to do that. They're like, just do what you've been doing. Obviously it worked. And no one was there to tell them, hey, this is wrong and this isn't working yet. And I applaud it takes a big, again, Bob Iger or Kevin Feige, whoever did it, to say, you're doing it wrong. We've spent too much money. We need to spend more money to make it right. And I think that's a big, for a corporation to do that rather than to scrap the whole idea, because they could have just said, you know what, no more TV shows. This is we're done. We're only going to focus on movies. But like for them to say we're going to fix everything and do it the right way and still focus on that content, I think that's an important decision they made with this whole property. Because obviously, again, a corporation is all about their bottom line, their money, and I could easily see them saying like, to save a couple $2 billion, Marvel gets no more TV shows, and people be like, great idea, that saved a bunch of money. Yeah, and I think these three shows, again, they talked about serialization rather than announcing new shows, saying the ones that we've already done are getting more series. Loki season 2, again, had no right to be as good as it did, but it was great. So hopefully they can take criticism or feedback and make these other shows season 2 just as good, if not better. I do want to point out Miss Marvel is still the highest rated series, Disney Plus series for Marvel right now, which I thought was great because she was such a treat in the Marvels, Mike, as I think we both agreed. So if you've not seen that, recommend you guys checking that out.
Yeah, I do wonder how successful the Marvel streaming series catalog is, though. Like, the funny thing about these like shorter series is I feel like I'm much less likely to ever rewatch them, right? You know, I'm more likely to rewatch a movie because it's just a one-time session of sitting down on the couch, but I'll probably never go back and rewatch Loki season 1 or season 2, even though I love them, right? You know, it's just not something I feel like I need to dive back into. So now how useful does that end up being for the Disney Plus catalog if there's not a lot of rewatchability to it, right? Kind of feels like sometimes you play a video game, you put a lot of work into it, and you just feel like that was great. I don't think I need to play it again, but I had a fun time playing it. So I guess we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I would say we might be outside of that line of people they're looking for, right, for these shows to rewatchability, because if they can get your money for how long is it? What, usually like 2.5 months per show, or maybe 1.5, 6 episodes. Some are 9, whatever they've got it. But I'm interested to see what an average viewer like. Does someone go back and rewatch it? What's their I know some people. I was saying my friend in the show, Brian. He's rewatched Loki several times just to like kind of put some of the pieces together. So I know there are people out there who are rewatching them. It's just maybe not us. We have a lot of content on our Thanksgiving plate, Mike, and it all looks a little beige, if you will. But anyway, that's the show for this week, Mike. If people want to know what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find you, buddy?
Yeah, they can read my webcomics at liferewardsrisk.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, where are you?
You can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, or Video Game Systems of the same name. If people want to know more about a show, what we're doing, what we're up to, maybe come back and listen about that Jonathan Majors trial next week, or listen to our Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom review in a couple weeks. Where can they find all that good stuff at?
Oh, all you got to do is visit superheroslate.com. That is the place we put all of our useful information, like our awesome show notes, our upcoming release calendar, our archive of all of our old episodes at superheroslate.com. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you like listening to podcasts. We got merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. Reach out, let us know what's a worse idea, Thor 5 or Eternals 2,
or Sinister
Reach out.
6.
Yes. Well, that's not fair.
Okay,
that one's. I think that one's a little bit easier to figure out.
Yeah.
But we love our super fans. So if you want to be a super fan of this show, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here next week, folks.
That's right. We'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.